What does it all mean?
This is where the archaeology has been found.
Oh, hi, how are you? Look at that.
I need a planter.
A shrine to a belly button.
This is a rock skull? Look at that. No one gets into this place. No one.
Whoa, don't take me too far.
Now that's naked archaeology.
King David, righteous king of biblical Israel, was a man of many talents. He slew Goliath. He conquered the Philistines. His love life was X-rated. But he also had amazing musical abilities. Before becoming king, David was just a regular teenager with a menial job, shepherding. But tending sheep can get boring. So David took up the harp. He got good at it, practicing for hours while he tended his flock. How do we know he got good? There's a passage in 1 Samuel that says, King Saul wanted a cunning harp player to calm his nerves when the evil spirit was upon him. So David was summoned, and when he played for Saul, sure enough, the evil spirit departed from him. But did David really play the harp? The Hebrew Bible says he played a kinnor. What's a kinnor? In many editions of the Bible, kinnor is translated as harp. But kinnor is also known as a lyre. I'm going to find whatever kind of instrument King David played and bring his music back to life. To better understand King David, who lived over 3,000 years ago, I need to understand the role music played in his day, as well as the kind of instruments available back then. I'm headed to the Bible Lands Museum here in Jerusalem because they have some of the coolest artifacts related to ancient music. One of the oldest findings on display here are these 15,000-year-old noisemakers, which were found in a tomb wrapped around the waist on the skeletal remains of a woman. They'd make noise as she swung her hips like a belly dancer. There are also depictions of musicians playing ancient flutes, drums, and guitar-like instruments. Curator Moshe Piamente is here to take us to a time before rock bands and MP3 players.
When we say music in the ancient world, in biblical times, what are we talking about?
Today, we look at music as a commodity, as entertainment. If you want to hear music, you just need to open the radio or to buy a CD. In those days, you don't have that. If you want to hear music, you have to produce it. You have to be the musician.
So music really wasn't just what we think of music. It was part and parcel of storytelling, performance, religion.
Music is always perceived as a bridge or as a doorstep into spiritual world.
So King David had an important spiritual role as a musician. Now let's find out what kind of harp he played. Since I'm here in Jerusalem, I think I'll start my search in the Old City.
What are you laughing about? This is a kind of harp. The Buffalo Dome Bamel. Is this authentic biblical music? Oops. I'm trying to sell you a flute. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Okay, no luck here. But I know a famous antiquities collector who may be able to help.
Shalom! Oh!
The legendary Shlomo Musayev. Hi.
Hi.
You looking good?
Thank you.
Shlomo Musayev is a collector of antiquities. Most of his vast collection is in London, but he also has several thousand pieces here in Israel.
Look at this.
I wonder if he has any musical instruments.
What is that?
This is Midianite.
No.
Yeah.
This must be at least 3,500 years old.
Yeah.
Amazing. Depictions of instruments that predate King David.
There's 3 women on a camel. Somebody's playing some kind of flute. Somebody's playing a drum.
Yeah.
And somebody's playing cymbals, yes?
Yeah.
But no harp.
You know what this is? You know how bands go around in buses?
Yeah.
But this may be the original tour bus.
You want to see rock and roll? You
This
want
may-
to see Elvis Presley?
You got Elvis Presley?
Yeah.
I can't believe it, he's got Elvis Presley. Look at that, he's in the Elvis position. See that? Ancient Elvis.
An ancient Elvis with a stringed instrument. Close, but no harp. So the hunt continues. It had to be small, because you don't carry a heavy thing when you're tending sheep. It had to be sturdy, because you never know when a Philistine like Goliath is gonna attack you. But we still don't know what David's music sounded like. I'm back in Jerusalem, where the art of music has been handed down from musician to musician. There's even one who claims descent from King David.
Yeah, there's a connection? So my father claims. So your father, so look, we got a descendant of King David.
He's a tall man. He's a tall man. So I should.
We're in Jerusalem. There's always been here singer, poets, and they're still here. And they're kind of making biblical music contemporary-wise. Here's we got one troubadour there. Today, I'm going to try to find King David's music. I'm going to try to find King David's harp. But in the meantime, I'm finding his modern descendants.
Girls are all vomit and curses and cruels.
Yeah, there's a connection?
So my father claims.
So your father, so look, we got a descendant of King David, and you're keeping the family business going.
Yeah.
And he wrote some pretty good music.
Oh yeah. I like his poems.
But do you know any of them? Yeah? Song of David, ladies and gentlemen.
That was Psalm 23, one of King David's best-known psalms. Jewish tradition maintains that the 150 psalms in the Bible are the handiwork of David. But what is a psalm? Sacred song or hymn. That means David wasn't writing songs to impress the girls. He was writing songs as a way of worshiping God. Maybe his melodies have been preserved in prayer. To find out, I'm headed to a synagogue. Professor Yaakov Kaduri has studied how ancient music was notated. Maybe he knows how ancient texts were chanted and how music was handed down.
Well, of course, it was difficult in ancient times. They didn't have the system of notes that we have.
So how does anyone know how to chant the text?
They did develop a rather sophisticated system for annotating the text and indicating at the same time how it was to be sung. They developed a system of little signs to put into the text. Those signs are called, in Hebrew, ta'amim, or in English, accents. They're a kind of punctuation system. Every word was marked with an accent. And the accent told you three different things. The degree of connectedness or separation between that word and the next. Then it also indicated which syllable within the word was accented. And the third thing is these same accents indicated the melody that went with that particular word.
Those ta'amim have survived to this day. Let's hear what they sound like.
וכן כתוב על יד נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ואמר.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you,
I
thank you, very
gotta
glad
shake
to
your
be on.
hand. I felt King David, you know, I did.
Professor Kaduri tells me that these melodies may have been preserved not only in Jewish tradition, but in Christian tradition as well.
The Psalms were sung publicly in early Christian communities, and at least one scholar I know felt that the Gregorian chant tradition is ultimately linked to the way the Psalms might have been rendered in pretty early times.
So it seems King David's music has influenced everything from sacred Gregorian chants to the rock music of today. But I still don't know what kind of lyre or harp King David played. Maybe this juice possesses the secret.
He's a tall, tall man. He's a tall, tall man.
You know, looking for King David's harp, you can work up quite a thirst. This is the place, obviously, to get pomegranate juice, yeah? Okay, can I have some?
My pleasure, my friend.
So far, I've heard what David's psalms might have sounded like 3,000 years ago. And I've seen depictions of ancient instruments from the time of David. But nobody can tell me exactly what King David's lyre or harp looked like.
Thank you. Look at this. I'm looking for King David's harp, and there it is, on the Israeli half shekel. My God, that's incredible.
An ancient biblical lyre on a modern Israeli coin. Maybe King David played something close to this. Joachim Braun is an expert in ancient musical instruments. Maybe he'll know if the lyre on the half shekel is like the instrument King David played.
I have here a modern Israeli coin, the half shekel, and it has a lyre right on it, right?
Yes, yes, I know this instrument very well. This is a symbol not only of the lyre, but it is a symbol of a faith. And
a faith?
It does not respond historically to the lyres of this time.
The shape of it.
Because the arms are turned to the outside, which in no lyre you will find such a thing.
So this lyre
yes,
comes from a forger or
yes, yes.
a lyre.
Yes.
It's a lyre based on a lyre.
But it is so.
It's true, right?
Yes, yes.
Do we have any idea now what David's lyre, given the archaeology, what would it have looked like?
They have two types of lyres. One, an elegant, small lyre with 3 to 4 strings. The other one was big and heavy with a number of strings much larger, 5 to 7. His lyre was probably the smaller type.
So a small lyre is what David actually played. Makes sense. If it was too big, he couldn't schlep it through the hills. But I still want to see what it looks like. I'm headed to the ruins of a fabulous Roman city here in Israel in the Galilee. I've heard there's a mosaic there that may be able to shed some light on what kind of lyre David may have played.
Hey, Jacob of Tzipori, Jacob of
Simcha,
Sepphoris.
the Naked Archaeologist. Welcome to Sepphoris National Park.
What is this place? When did it start? When did it end?
This used to be the capital of the Galilee. We know it's a Jewish city from probably the beginning of the 1st century. It was destroyed by the Romans, and when Jesus was a little guy.
That's when it became Sin City, and the cultural life of Sepphoris really started to cook.
I heard about this Orpheus, this music man. What's he doing over here?
The Orpheus mosaic is a pagan motif. It's quite an amazing mosaic.
Where's Orpheus?
Orpheus is right over
there,
here.
right?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay.
You have a special, you're a big shot. You have permission to do this. So we're in somebody's living room here.
We're now in somebody's living room. We're in his triclinium, in his entertaining room. And you're standing probably on one of the tables. They would lie down in sort of like a sort of chaise chair or divan chair. And the servants would come and feed them the courses. This is the Orpheus mosaic.
Orpheus, the David of the Greeks, was the greatest musician and poet of Greek myth. His songs could charm wild beasts and coax trees and rocks into dancing. Does this Orpheus mosaic show a true picture of King David's lyre?
I know that King David lived 1,000 years before this lyre, but does this give us historical information as to what the biblical lyre would have looked like?
Very much so. Imagine if you can go in a time machine and take photographs of what was back then. Here is what you have. And you can see here the lyre, and you can count the number of strings it has.
This is closer to King David's lyre than some of the harps we see today.
Absolutely. Things in the ancient world changed very, very slowly indeed. So my guess is King David's harp looked something like this.
It's pretty big.
Maybe too big for a shepherd to schlep around. Bottom line?
The lyre that David played, unfortunately, we really don't know exactly what it looked like.
Okay, so I've hit a dead end. Or have I? Both Orpheus and King David were famous not only as lyre players, but also as heroes and kings. Mythical Orpheus was king of the Cicones. And there's another famous mythical hero who played the lyre, Tristan, a Celtic warrior and a knight of the Round Table. Is there a connection here between heroes and lyre players? Just like today, people in ancient days wanted God to be on their side during a battle, so it helped if their warriors were spiritual people. Consequently, they may have used spiritual music in hopes of beating their enemies to a pulp.
The fact that David was the king and musician and warrior, this was obviously something that at that time was valued.
There is a role in our mind of this hero of music. Okay, you can see Orpheus, you can see Tristan, you can see David.
So there's no contradiction between being a warrior and a musician?
No, not at all. Those warriors used music
to conquer themselves.
Yeah, because it helps you to remember, I am not
my lower part.
My lower part. We can see on him this war, this inner war between his passions, his physical longings, and he has a higher part, which sings psalms and sings music and relates to the voice of God.
He dances, he plays instruments.
Yeah, he is a representative of human being. He's standing in the middle, he holds both ends. I am that and I am that. And he has to choose what he is.
So King David used music to reach his higher spiritual self. We still haven't heard what his music sounded like, but I'm not giving up just yet. I've heard about a workshop in the hills of Jerusalem where a couple is making reproductions of harps from King David's time. But how do they know what David's harp looked like?
I hate to harp on this, but ever since I've been hunting for David's harp, I see harps everywhere.
I now know that David played a small harp or lyre, so that he could easily schlep it through the hills while tending his sheep. But although I've seen depictions of instruments from King David's time, I haven't found his lyre or harp. I'm off to a little workshop in the hills of Jerusalem where I've heard there's a couple that makes biblical instruments and even harps from King David's time.
I'm very excited. We're going now to biblical harp makers. Hello. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
Hi. Good. How are you?
You must be the famous harp maker.
I'm Shoshana. Yeah.
Shoshana, the harp maker.
Come on in and I'll show you a little bit about what we're doing.
25 years ago, Micah and Shoshana Harari brought their musical and woodworking talents to Israel and started this workshop to recreate biblical instruments, including David's harp. None of the experts I've spoken to have been able to show me what David's harp or lyre looked like. How do the Hararis do it?
There's three sources of information that we use. There's the Bible,
right.
There's archaeology, and then there is the Talmud. These are the three sources that speak about it, and so we took everything. For example, there's the shape and the way it looks. So that's from archaeology. This is the shape that's on this cave, a drawing in the cave that the archaeologists say is 3,000 years old.
Found at Megiddo in Israel, this etching is the earliest known depiction of a harp. Larger than a kinnor, this would have been known in biblical times as a nevel.
So this is the nevel,
This is the nevel.
And this is the kinnor, or the kinnor David.
I finally found David's harp.
All of the psalms that are in the Bible were composed upon one or both of these instruments.
But he was a shepherd. I find it hard to believe that he was schlepping this big thing.
You can pick it up, it's not heavy.
So David had a kinnor and a nevel. But wait, Didn't Professor Brown tell me this shaped lyre was a fake?
I was told that this image, which is also on the half shekel, archaeomusicologists say it's a fake.
Well, maybe they've never played it, but it makes perfect musical sense, and it also makes beautiful music.
David was quite revolutionary. Before he came along, pagans were also combining music and temple worship, but they focused on orgiastic sex accompanied by music. David was rejecting the pagan way. He made the music central to the worship.
Beautiful. When you talk archaeology or you talk about musicology, you almost forget that they weren't going for a PhD. They were trying to communicate to God.
So he used his harp as a sort of cell phone to heaven.
Now that we understand how David's harp looks like, sounds like, and how he used it to connect to God, I've got one more thing to show you. There's one piece that I saw back at Shlomo Musayev's that I've saved for last. Archaeology that shows us how music was performed before David came along.
What have you got there?
Playing the harp. See her move.
Harp.
See her body.
Look at this. A woman reclining, nude. Here are the strings. This is dedication to music, first of all. But second of all, we are actually talking about an artifact that may predate David and that actually shows a pre-biblical or biblical harp played in a way that would raise eyebrows even today. When I went searching for the archaeology of David's harp, I never ever thought I would get to the bottom of this archaeological mystery. And here it is, the bottom and the harp.
He's a total man.